This program is brought to you in part by the Eugenie and Joseph Jones Family Foundation, a local foundation proud to support education, the arts, and culture in the greater New Orleans area.
Hello, I'm Marcia Kavanaugh. Thanks so much for joining us. Well, artificial intelligence will be its product, but genuine wealth may be the benefit of a new upstate data center announced this week. Local officials are promising an economic boon statewide, including the New Orleans area. Well, meanwhile, the French Quarter, an area already known for its economic productivity, is mired with trash collection issues. And the redevelopment of the former Six Flags site is slowed by a dispute over scrap metal. Moving ahead, though, are redevelopment plans for the former Lindy Boggs Medical Center and improvements for the nearby Lafitte Greenway, plus deep cuts at UNO. We will look at these stories as well as the saga of a priest whose often delayed trial ended with a guilty plea. Joining us are tonight's Informed Sources, Errol Laborde, producer of Informed Sources, Tony McAuley, staff writer, the Times-Picayune, the New Orleans Advocate, Ben Myers, staff writer, the Times-Picayune, the New Orleans Advocate, and David Hammer, chief investigative reporter, WWL Louisiana, Channel 4. And we go over to E first, because there was a big announcement this week about this big AI facility that's going to be going up in North Louisiana.
Yeah, it's going to go up in about maybe 30 miles east of Monroe, Louisiana. The whole facility is going to be about a mile long. It's so big. It's by a company called Meta, which does a lot of information technology. It is the owner of Facebook and Instagram, and it has 20 of these other facilities around the world. This will be the biggest, and so this is a big deal. They're anticipating 500 jobs, direct jobs, and like 1,000 or so indirect jobs. So it's a real boon. And so they had a big announcement. And they said, some of the things they like about it is the transportation advantages of North Louisiana, that the attitude towards business is good. And this is right after coming out of a legislative session, and the governor, a business-friendly legislature. And so they're really fired up about it. I remember early in the year, interviewing the mayor of Monroe, which is nearby, and he didn't talk about this, but you could tell he thought that something big was about to happen. Mm-hmm. And he was talking about the railroad growth that was going to be in the area, that they were building expanded railroads growth between Dallas and Baton Rouge, and that was going to pass right through Monroe, and about new residential things. So I think they think big things are going to happen. They said all of the right things with this. It's they talked about, it's going to take a lot of energy, but they're going to have their own energy facilities. It's going to take a lot of water, but they're going to have their own water facilities. They're going to have renewable water facilities. It's going to take a lot of jobs, but they're going to help create jobs. Mm-hmm. And so they're doing all the things. It's a $10 billion investment. They expect it to be done in an operation by 2030. So if that happens, and it's going to really be important. And of all the ballyhooing that came out of this yesterday, Greater New Orleans Inc. put a press release about it. And Michael Heck, the CEO, says, you maybe wonder why we're talking about something in Monroe. But he goes on and says, because it's going to be good for New Orleans. This is going to create a lot of jobs that are going to trickle down to New Orleans. It's going to be a big benefit for the state. So if you look at the combination of the two events this week with the announcement of this, and if everything that people in Baton Rouge were saying about the new economic package comes through, then they're saying, hey, there's going to be a high time for Louisiana. So.
Well, we certainly hope that is the truth, but that is definitely a big facility, and that's big economic news.
Meta's a huge operation around the world. So they have this kind of money and this kind of activity. It's going to be a good
thing to hear AI creating jobs when we know that it's destroying something.
Right, exactly. Well, we hope that it creates jobs for us. All right. Thanks a lot, E. And Tony, and along with more economic development impact, too, is more local, though, is the Lafitte Greenway. There's more planned for it.
Yeah, it's one of those, one of the great eyesores that David and I have worked on stories in the past about. That have seemed quite intractable for quite a long time, really since Hurricane Katrina that's gone through 5 different.
And that's Lindy Boggs you're talking about right now, right there on the Greenway. Yeah.
Hospital, yeah. And
Originally a Mercy Hospital. A long
originally
time ago.
Mercy, I think
yeah.
it was in the 90s.
Yeah.
It was renamed Lindy
Boggs.
Boggs by a tenant, I think, owned it at that point. But it's just, the building itself has proved very, very problematic because of the basement and because of the flooding that occurred during right after Katrina, and bringing medical facilities or assisted living facilities in there required HUD funding, and that was just really rejected.
It was just not working.
Yeah, and so after about 4 of those attempts, including the latest developers who bought the thing in 2021, they've just decided to rethink the whole aspect there, and they've joined up with Sidney Torres, who bought a big chunk of land from the old railway that ran along what is now Lafitte Greenway about a decade ago, and he's been talking about doing something with that ever since. But now the two of them together and the architects and urban planners that they've employed are looking at putting in there something like Malibu Country Mart, people may be familiar with, or Alice Beach in Florida, which have been, in the case of Malibu, very long-lasting, very popular urban centers that have attractions that bring families in, as well as sort of higher-end boutique retail shops, and various other restaurants and sort of entertainment venues. So that's the idea now. And if it comes off, if they can get investors, it's a better climate for investment now than it was a year or so ago. Then you could see like 160 million of development over the next few years going into, putting in something there that would be an attraction for the whole city, really.
So the building, Lindy Boggs, will that be demolished?
Well, there are some obstacles there. Like it has historical status, but they can get over that because it's a mid-century building. They're talking about partial or full demolition, really, to be able to do what they want to do. Some of the things they've looked at there was some sort of retail. They looked at Target, for example, but they wanted a smaller Target because of the traffic that could be handled there than Target itself wanted. So they're looking at hotel options and a mix of retail and a hotel and perhaps a little bit of office there, but something radically different than they've been talking about for the last couple of decades.
Tony, is this something where it's believe it when you see it? Because we've done the stories that we did about Joe Yeager. Paul Flower did the interview with us where he was saying that it really is difficult to get that kind of investment on these large blighted properties. Or do you think that there really is a corner that's been turned here?
I mean, it's always difficult to get those developments going, the ones that they were trying to do, because you have these layers of finance, as they've discussed with us. And a big chunk of it, the sort of bottom chunk that they need to get first, is something like the HUD financing. Well, they just went through a process with HUD that took several years, and they got a no. And they can go back and try to appeal that over the next several years, But I don't think anybody realistically would want to see that happen. I think people really want to see a whole new, vision here.
Right.
And that's going to be the same with some of these other ones that we've looked at. They did get the government financing, different layers of the government financing they need for the old Navy facility. And they've started to hire subcontractors now, so we are seeing something that we can believe down there. But we haven't seen anything with Plaza Tower. We haven't seen anything with the old power plant by the river.
Market Street.
So let me jump in. E, did you?
I was going to say, maybe the project can also do something to enhance that part of Bayou St. John, which is a real wasted resource. I mean, it got a potential beauty. I mean, it was a natural bayou from the lake into downtown. If they, they have that festival there once a year. Yeah. But if you could tie in that and have recreation and leisure along the bayou tied in with this, that could be a good area. And then the bike path.
100%, and that's in the sketches that they've done so far. Very rough early sketches, but they want to build additional water features on the other side of the greenway there that would tie it into the bayou. Little kayak depot. I mean, there's ideas to do that very thing that you're talking about.
Okay, well, we'll see where it goes. It does sound really exciting. Sounds like it would be a real asset to have there in the middle of the city, and because the Lafitte Greenway itself, that's been really very popular, very successful. And what's happening there?
And it's boosted, property values and other economic development or proximity to it.
All right. All righty. Thanks a lot, Tony. Now we're going to go on over to Ben, because another real important issue right now is regarding trash collection in the French Quarter on the verge of the holiday season and Super Bowl. But there's a question going on about the contract.
Right. So the existing contract for sanitation and not just sanitation, mind you, so it's not just garbage pickup, but it's street sweeping, pressure washing, litter abatement. It expires on December 23rd. And we don't know what's going to happen after that. Now, before I be accused of sensationalizing, there is a lot of confidence that there will be some kind of emergency contract executed, but we don't know for sure yet.
And right now there is an emergency contract that actually is going to expire on the 23rd, because that one was an emergency as well, right?
The existing contract is also an emergency contract because the contractor last year notified the Cantrell administration that they didn't want to do it anymore because the costs were getting too high. Nothing was done, or they weren't able to come to terms, I should say, in time, and so they had to do an emergency contract and add another $500,000 onto it.
And that's the one that's expiring. But the immediate issue now is a potential contract.
Right. So,
but there's an issue with that.
Right. So in July they did an RFP and awarded the contract to Henry Consulting, who had a subcontractor, Richards Disposal Inc. Fast forward a few months, and that partnership has fallen apart. The subcontractor, Richards, is suing Henry Consulting, claiming that that they switched up the payment terms that they had agreed upon. Henry Consulting strongly denies this and says we never had an agreement. Point being that is dissolved. Henry has tried to replace Richards with a different subcontractor at a lower price. City Council is indicated that they're not going to move forward with this. They have different reasons for doing so, but their approval is needed for this contract, and they say they're not going to do it. That presumably leaves the ball in the mayor's court. I should say there's some hope, it seems, that maybe Richards and Henry will work out their differences. I haven't really seen anything, at least outwardly, to suggest that's going to happen. They seem to be pretty much at odds right now. But Councilman King, whose district is the French Quarter, has called for the administration to go ahead and move forward with an emergency contract if there is no resolution by next week. The Cantrell administration has said nothing about this so far, so we're kind of in the lurch.
So as you said, council said that they wouldn't approve it. At least two council people are really concerned with what the contract that was drawn up, what it has in it, but what about the rest of the council? Is it just the two council at large who are really opposing?
No. So the council members at large, Moreno and Morell, were the first to raise alarms about this. Fundamentally, what they're saying, in addition to raising questions about how it was awarded and trying to raise questions about the prime contractor, Henry Consulting, they're saying fundamentally this is not the package that was scored the highest. That Henry Consulting and Richards Disposal is a long-time city contractor. There's been some issues over the years with City Hall, but every sanitation contractor has that. And its owner, Alvin Richard, is a highly respected businessman. They're saying that's the proposal that was scored highest, and now you're trying to switch it up and have a different subcontractor. You've got to rebid it. The other council members who have weighed in on this have been more neutral on who's at fault here, but saying they don't really want to move forward with something when Richards and Henry are in dispute. So that's where we are.
So Councilman Morell, though, has said we will have a contract.
Councilmember Morell said, everyone, don't worry. There's no way that the garbage in the French Quarter is not going to be picked up right before the Super Bowl. Yeah,
we need the garbage picked up, that's for sure. But we haven't heard anything from the administration yet about which direction they're going to take.
That's right. We really don't know. I expect that next week we will have some more clarity on this. But, time's ticking.
Time is ticking,
right. Get Jeff Landry called a National Guard.
That would be something. That would be one option.
Do the trash pickup? No, that's not preferable. All right. Okay. Thanks a lot, Ben. Yeah. David, let's go on over to you. There was a guilty plea, a big guilty plea in a priest case.
Yeah, I really cannot overstate how important, how significant this was. Lawrence Hecker, a priest who has confessed on camera to me that and to Ramon Antonio Vargas of The Guardian that he molested several children in the 1960s and 70s, pled guilty to all counts in a rape kidnapping case dating back to 1975. brought by the district attorney, Jason Williams, in Orleans Parish. And Jason Williams fought very hard through the civil court system to try to get access to documents from the Archdiocese of New Orleans files that he needed to establish proof that this happened and to show a pattern of abuse by Lawrence Hecker. But really the turning point in this case, and we talk about this is informed sources, well, very few people have as many informed sources and well-placed sources than Ramon Vargas does, and he got a very important document in the summer of 2023, and that was a confession that Lawrence Hecker wrote in 1999 confessing to molesting at least at least 3 with overt sexual acts, and then other sexual acts with an additional 4 underage teens. And when he got that and shared it with me, we went, it was my idea to go and bring the document and give Lawrence Hecker an opportunity to respond. And I told him, I have this document, and he came down and went on camera with us, and that's when he said, yes, I did this, and we asked him detailed questions. But he always denied rape. He always denied that he had sex with anybody against their will. He said that these children were 100% willing, and he did that again on camera with us. And then 2 weeks after that interview, he was arrested, charged with rape, and I'm not going to go into the details because they're, you have to prepare an audience to hear them, but it was a violent act, and that is what he finally, after a process that took more than a year of him being arrested and then brought before the judge, and questions about his competency, as he's 93 years old now. He was 91 when he was arrested. He's 93 now. His mental competency was questioned, but there were delays after delays after delays. And the fear was that he would not make it to trial, that he would die before going to trial. But with his clear competency established, he pled guilty on all counts.
On the day that the trial was
On
finally
the day that
begin to start.
We were gathered there at Orleans Parish Criminal Court at Tuin and Broad, and preparing to go in with 100 prospective jurors for jury selection, and Judge Nandi Campbell came out and said, we have a guilty plea.
How do the victims feel about this? Because there are several there that wanted to testify.
Absolutely. Well, I think the overall sentiment from the victims who were prepared to testify was that they were glad that this happened, that they're glad that he is now a convicted child rapist. He will always be that, and he will spend the rest of his life, however long that is, incarcerated. Now, they did want to confront him in court. There is a little bit of a bittersweet sense from them that they wanted to confront him in court and while he was fighting these charges. But now that he's accepted them, they will still get to go into court on his sentencing, when he will get an automatic life sentence, and they will get to give their victim impact statements. There are about a dozen victims of Heckers who are prepared to give those statements, including the victim in this incident that was, he admitted that he raped him that he was unconscious and raped him.
Now the DA says continuing to investigate, correct?
Yes, because there are wider implications here, and this is the thing that Ramon and I have been working on for the last 5-6 years, which is the broader cover-up. And in the Lawrence Hecker case, the reason why it was so significant was that the proof that came through in the documents of how they repeatedly covered up, knew about his crimes, he admitted them, and they continued to put him back in ministry, did not report all of those confessed crimes to the police, reported a few of them bit by bit, and did not disclose it to the public until 2018. That is part of a broader now criminal investigation of a alleged child sex trafficking by the church, and that led to a search warrant being served on the Archdiocese of New Orleans earlier this year, and that criminal investigation that involves the state police and the FBI continues.
Okay, and I assume that you will be continuing too in your investigations with it as well.
Absolutely.
All right, David, thanks a lot. All right, Ben, over to you. Demolition over at the former Six Flags site, but not right now.
Not quite yet. There's been a couple hurdles. Number one, there was a contractor licensing issue that resulted in a stop work order. So this was several weeks ago. There was an asbestos inspection issue. LDEQ got involved and said, hey, you got to inspect this. The developers say that they've resolved that part of it. But now we've got a dispute between the public agency, the New Orleans Redevelopment Authority that owns the site and leases it to the developers Bayou Phoenix, over who has the rights to the scrap metal. Bayou Phoenix would like to pay the demolition contractor in part with the proceeds from the scrap metal. Nora is saying, what are you doing? This is public property, and any of this needs to be reinvested back into the site. The lease itself does not say what happens to the scrap metal. There are differing provisions that can be interpreted differently. I'm not a lawyer, but clearly there's differing opinions on this. Last I have heard, or checked at least with Nora, they were trying to downplay this and say, we're going to come to an agreement soon. I have not heard that they have. I have heard from the developers that, no, we are taking the scrap metal. We have the title to it.
So does Nora say, no, it's ours?
That's what they were saying to begin with, but I can't. I don't really know where they are on this right now. So we'll see soon.
We've seen a start and stop on this whole redevelopment of the former Jazzland, former Jazzland Six Land site. So I mean, how much does this delay things?
Well, I think it remains to be seen. You know, in an optimistic view, this is just a hurdle, and you know, you get a lot of optimistic talk from both the developers and Nora, so you know, they're going to have to back that up. But you know, I think it remains to be seen. I mean, will there be other hurdles coming down? We don't know. So,
but this is also involving Henry Consulting, right?
That's right.
They're with Bayou Phoenix.
Well, Troy Henry. It's not. Henry Consulting is a partner with Bayou Phoenix and a construction company called TMJ Inc. Henry Consulting is also the
involved in the trash collection.
Right.
Yeah, in the French Quarter. Okay.
Right.
All right. Thanks a lot, Ben. E, over to you. We've been hearing some news about University of New Orleans and its decreasing enrollment, which of course is having a serious impact there on the university and its budget. And because of that, there are going to be cuts.
Yeah, remember in the early days of UNO, the big question is how do they contain all the students that are trying to get in? But that, for various reasons, that's been on the decline. Even though no one has ever said it's not a good university. I mean, it's always been a good university. Right? It's hard to get exact enrollment figures, but it's around 6,000 right now. And at its high, it was once like around 17,000.
Right.
Now you got graduate students, undergraduates, and part-times, and so it's hard to get, but it's no doubt a significant decline for various reasons. People going otherwhere. Most of you out there, and probably a lot of you, when you went there, it was probably part of the LSU system, and then a few years ago, it changed to the University of Louisiana system, which has ULL and Lafayette and all of the other colleges. So what happened this week is that the board of the ULL system approved or allowed the UNO management to go ahead with this plan that it has to restructure itself. So they're going to go ahead with this plan and implement it, and then ultimately it has to be approved. If everything is approved, it's going to reduce the budget by $2 million that they're claiming. Among the things is to consolidate 5 degree-granting colleges into 2, to eliminate 2 vice presidents, to eliminate, I think, 8 deans and department heads. And it just goes down and down. 2 associate deans again, and 8 department chairs. So it's going to be drastic, and it's going to start being implemented in January, again, if it's approved. And one thing that the ULL board demands that it also be approved by the faculty. But I imagine it's going to be a hard pill for the faculty. So by all intentions, it's going to start in January. Now, Kathy Johnson, who is the president who was hired by the ULL board, assures that the academic quality will not suffer and that the student experience will not suffer, that they're going to still maintain as a university. And he said, whatever they do, they're going to have a 2-year trial period. And after 2 years, if they see better signs, they will bring back some of the things that were cut. But it's going to be rough time. It's not just, this is all over the country. that universities are having problems.
they're having enrollment
There's just been
problems.
population shifts. There was a period in the 1980s when the birth rate went down, and just for various reasons, and there's just so much competition, and maybe so many alternatives for people to go other than the college, and so it's an ongoing problem. But UNO probably feels a little bit worse because it doesn't have like that big LSU experience, with the big stadium and the marching bands and the team and everything. But it's no doubt it's an important asset to the community.
Yes, it certainly has been. So the what's being eliminated actually is going to be a consolidation too, right now with 2 colleges?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we wish them all the best of luck because UNO, as you said, has been so important to this community and offering that higher education experience to so many of us. So, all righty. Other stories. Other stories over to you.
Oh yeah, other stories. Tomorrow is election day, and it's going to be it's going to be kind of a boring election day. There's 4 constitutional amendments. I guess the most noteworthy has to do with the restructuring of the system that reviews judicial appointments. And in New Orleans, there's one school board runoff around the area. There's various runoffs with various elections. But if you want to know more about the constitutional amendments, go right there to the Public Affairs Research Council, which always does the best research, and check out their website.
And in Jefferson Parish, a really important millage election, too, coming up, and that's regarding the school system.
Yeah, they have some financial type issues. This is a election day around the country, not long after the presidential election. There's always this election day scheduled in case there's any runoffs for Congress. And so in various places around the country you have that, but we don't have any runoffs for Congress.
Okay, all righty. Over to you, Tony.
Closing thoughts?
Closing thoughts, Tony. Join us, Tony.
Well, we do a lot of stories about the homeless situation, a lot of negative stories about how intractable it is. But I was at the retirement of Clarence Adams at Osnum Inn on Thursday, and he's handing over to Renee Blanche. And Osnum Inn has been actually a really good institution for many, many years, and it's in its new larger premises on Borgia Street now. They've had like 600 people come through the program and get into permanent housing, so I just shout out to Clarence.
All right, very good. Thank you. Ben?
City Council will soon be voting on a permanent zoning change in Lower Algiers that would prohibit, it would effectively ban or prohibit plans for a multifamily housing development right across from the English Turn subdivision.
Right.
So that will be interesting to watch.
It will indeed. Quickly, David.
Well, you talked about the larger significance of the Lawrence Hecker case. We have an hour special coming up this coming Wednesday at 9 o'clock on WWL Louisiana. Losing faith, praying from the pulpit.
This Wednesday, 9.
This Wednesday at 9.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot for being here, and thank you all for joining us. See you again next week for Informed Sources. Have a good evening.
This program is brought to you in part by the Eugenie and Joseph Jones Family Foundation, a local foundation proud to support education, the arts, and culture in the greater New Orleans area.